Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Everybody, and welcome to Neon Twilight on Nightlight Radio with Solaris Blue Raven. We're so glad you could join us tonight. Solaris, as always, has a fascinating topic to delve into with amazing inspirational insights into that topic. So welcome to the show, Solaris.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here again. Nice to hear your voice.
Oh yeah, well, me and the allergies. Yeah, I am hoping for a really good freeze that kills everything off. Well, you know, pollen wise, anyhow.
You're still getting pollen over there? Wow.
I am allergic to everything. So I think when I did the testing, she said, "Poor you. There's not a season where you're not allergic to something." So.
Wow. Yeah, that's Pisces.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So once I discovered that, I moved to Nashville, which has more pollen than Connecticut had. So I speak with a huskier voice than is normally my speaking voice. So, yeah, I guess
don't
if I
find me,
went
but I always have that. Go ahead.
The husky rat. You know, every time I listen to me, I'm reminded of Lucille Ball, and if you listen to the first I Love Lucy, she had a clear, high voice, and then if you listen to her later on in her career, I guess it was the smoking that did her in as far as her vocal cords. So, and she had the husky voice and everything. So, but I've never smoked anything
like
in my life. No, oh, okay.
No, neither have I. But I get that kind of voice too. I get froggy voice late night. So you're not alone. I call it a froggy voice because I have to clear my
Well, yeah, it is, and it's just kind of like every now and then it's so croaky. It's kind of like, should I cancel a show or reschedule it? And then there's no knowing when the voice is going to come back or be good. Or, you know, if I did that, I would probably have a backup of 10 or 20 shows, and I don't want to do that. So.
No, you sound fine. You know, honey's good for that. I've been taking honey. For your throat. Yeah.
Especially if it's local honey.
Correct. Yeah. I have some local here. I really like it.
Well, if you take the local honey, it's made from the pollen of the local plants, and you'll build up an immunity to the pollen from those plants.
That's what I've heard. That's great.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, it's also good for your throat.
One way or another.
My mother used to sing in a band. You know, when they were younger, they used to take the honey before they sang. They used to, and she said it used to help her throat. Well, you know, I know it's kind of a remedy for anything with sore throats or even just being hoarse. So I like it.
Oh yeah, it works good. It really does. And I never thought of that. Maybe next time before a show, I'll go down and slug some honey and see if that'll take some of the huskiness out of me.
Teaspoon of honey or some tea with some honey in there.
Yeah.
That's always good. You don't like tea and honey?
I'm not a tea person.
Yeah. I can have tea once in a while, not all the time, but I'm a coffee most of the time, coffee being, but I do like tea as well. Lavender tea is really good. I just bought some. It's excellent.
Well, I do love the throat coat that tastes like licorice. That's a terrific tea. I love that. I like licorice, so.
Licorice is great.
And it's weird because I love coffee ice cream, but I don't like hot coffee.
Wow.
Go
interesting.
figure.
But you'll drink coffee cold?
No. I'll drink a frappuccino that has
those
lots
are good.
of. Yeah, but I'm also lactose intolerant, so
So then it's not good.
I'll pay for it in the long run, so to speak. But it's good going down. So you picked a great topic for tonight. I'm excited about this one.
Thank you. Me too. It seems to be popular as well as far as people's concerns and experiences in general. It seems like there has been a lot of people are interested in past lifetimes. Plus, near-death experiences is a very popular one as well. So yeah, it'd be fun for us to dial into that and see where we go.
Absolutely. I think there's so much new material out there about near-death experiences. It's really kind of fascinating. Doctors were saying at first that, well, it was just the brain being deprived of oxygen and therefore they were hallucinations. And then a couple of surgeons had a near-death experience and turned all of the research and everything upside down and said, oh, no, it's not that. There's something else there. So it's got good street creds these days.
Exactly. And the question is, when they have their near-death experiences, where do you think they're really going? It's beyond the astral plane, if you ask me. But it makes me wonder if it was the origin, that void before they showed up here in this world, or on this world, the journey. So I don't know what your perception is of that. Yeah, I think about that.
I hadn't actually thought about it, but it's a good question because they, for the most part, they seem to be following a light. But they never quite get to it, most of them. And I'm wondering, my feeling was interdimensional. So a long time ago, I read a whole series of books about flying dragons, and the dragons, had a rider, and the dragons were capable of going from one location to another location in a heartbeat. And in order to get there, they went through the nothingness to come in the other side of the world type stuff. And I'm wondering if the void that people go through or are a part of is sort of like a black hole between this reality and another dimension or another reality, kind of the nothingness that the dragons flew through.
It makes sense. Or even like a portal, a very large portal, which would be like a void.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that. Yeah, absolutely.
And
very interesting. When you were mentioning... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you were mentioning... You and I do this all the time. Go ahead.
No, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
After you. Go ahead.
All right. So when we're talking about the darkness that surrounds them and the tunnel could easily be a portal or a black hole or an entrance to another dimension.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Now, you were mentioning earlier, though, about them traversing, when they leave their body, they go towards the light, but they don't really make it to that destination. Something pulls them back. I'm wondering if it's their frequency that's just not at the fine-tuned level it needs to be fully detached from the body.
Could be that. Well, who is it? It's I forget what denomination it is. If it's I don't know. There is one denomination that the body isn't buried for 3 days because theoretically it took that long for the spirit to leave the body. I don't think that's the case, to totally withdraw from the body. I don't think that's a common belief among, because the Jewish people bury immediately. So I think the spirit does. Well, that could be too.
Yeah.
I don't think the spirit is. Yeah, I don't think the spirit is lost. I think the spirit knows exactly what's going on.
I agree with you. I think when they're out of body, it's kind of like an out-of-body experience, but you're hovering, in my opinion, probably observing your whole entire, burial to some degree. I think that's an option. What concerns me the most, and this is a very strange thought, but is the idea behind people not being able to get out of the body, being trapped inside the body as it's being buried or being cremated, and having to witness and experience that traumatic event. And I know that's terrible to say on here, but I do wonder if that is something that's a possibility, that people just don't make it out of body completely, and somehow some aspect of them gets trapped in the matrix. So that I look at, and maybe that's why they're looking at the 3 days, right? So 3 days is kind of a trinity. It's kind of an interesting number. And then that takes time to process and release, and maybe they're doing ceremony. It almost reminds me of the Tibetans or something, where you're doing ceremony and prayer work to help release and transmute the soul alchemically. And then maybe it's 3 days is a processing time. Who knows? But I want to make sure people are actually gone before we bury them anyway. I mean, that would be the thing. We've heard about people being prematurely sent to the morgue, and they're actually not dead. So, in the old days when they used to put the mirror, you remember when they used to put the mirrors on, make them make sure they're not breathing on the mirror, see if they're alive.
There was
people.
Was a period of time in the 30s, 40s, where literally people would bury a microphone in the coffin just in case the person woke up, and they could, yell for help, and it would broadcast from the coffin to the outside world. I know a lot of people did that. Yeah, there
cool.
was a.
I did not know that.
That's
trivia for me.
A couple that had telephones too, just in case, to make sure I'm really gone.
Wouldn't that be interesting? That reminds me of the Twilight Zone or something. But when you think about it, I remember they used to use the bells so that the bell would be there to make sure someone could ring the bell on the coffin. I don't know if it was where it was located in the coffin or not, but yeah, that I can understand. The telephone thing I never heard of, and that's very interesting. And even the microphone is even a better idea, because I think they would make a lot of errors back in the day. People go into some kind of catatonic state or coma or who knows what. And then there's another aspect of, if the heart stops beating, does that really make them dead? I don't know.
Well, there are monks that can slow their breathing and their heart rate down tremendously.
Right. Yeah.
And there are drugs. There are drugs that can put you into that state. Of course, you have to have something to bring you out of the state. But
right.
So there. That's really an interesting, horrifying thought. But but it's concerning to me, because when my dog transferred, and I know I always got to dial into him, but it's recent, since February. But the idea behind euthanization, right? They stop the heart. They give them the Michael Jackson drug, and then they stop the heart, and then supposedly they transfer out. I just have a hard time with that. I don't know what it is. I really do, and I kind of wonder, the consciousness, how long does it really take of an evolved being, whether it's a dog or a person, to transfer out of body under those circumstances? And then there's the aspect of, you're taking them off the timeline ahead of time, and the illusion of maybe it wasn't their time. And that's called for doctors or vets, whatever. That's another aspect of premature death, right? You shouldn't have taken them, and they should have lived. And I don't know, I'm just speculating. But I look at that on a bigger scale. I really do. Well, you talk about people who opt for the euthanasia, where, they're dying of cancer and they just want to be let go and helped over. They don't want to have to languish, and, and any number of people have done that. But usually they were already, if I go into a coma and I'm brain dead, please pull the plug type stuff,
Right.
But you're right. I think we come in with a program that we're supposed to finish, so to speak, and when the program is done, then it's time for us to go. And what if we are, taken out artificially before our natural time is? Mm-hmm. And was there something in that interim that we would have achieved had we lingered longer?
Right. No, I totally agree. That's what I've always questioned.
Yeah, I understand people saying, my mother was on a respirator, but she was brain dead, and I had to sign the papers to have them take her off that. But
that's right.
So it's a really good question as to is there a purpose in the body staying even if it's not functional? Is there something that person in that state would affect other people in a certain way? And if you take that situation away from them, does that mean that the lesson that they would have derived from it is something that will have to be repeated in another lifetime or another place within this lifetime?
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Right in the halls of Amente, he's in a stasis, and that's how it is. I mean, maybe it's a more comfortable stasis, but nonetheless, he's projecting himself into various fields and dimensions, right? At least that's the way it appears in the Emerald Tablets. And then you look and you see it's a kind of a similar situation. You're dealing with people who don't appear to be living, but some aspect of their consciousness is going. It's there. It's aware. It's coherent. And to what degree, no one really knows. They don't measure it. They don't know if that being is monitoring dialogue. It's astral projecting in everybody's rooms and talking to them, and they don't even hear them. All kinds of things. I just think it's very interesting, and they should really take a deeper look on the transition aspects on this world, in my opinion. And that goes for animals, too. Like I said, I had a very rough time with my dog. Still not over that. Not over that at all. And a lot of it is because I didn't think he was supposed to go that time. I don't think he was supposed to have left. And I was struggling with that. And then the idea behind that kind of transfer, even though I was holding the space for him. And then we were wondering, is he transferring out? Is his consciousness there? And I had a real strong feeling that he was disoriented. Like, why did you leave me? Why did you leave me there? Like, why aren't you here? And I hope that's not the case, but maybe it was just guilt or something because, they after they transfer, and I held the space, they don't let you stay. I don't know if you know that, you probably do, but
I think that was your guilt, because
maybe
I've seen animals hit by cars, and I've seen their spirit get up and go on grazing.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
So no, I think
I'm not here. Yeah.
No,
that's not
I
they got hurt, but they Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. See, I think that with animals, their consciousnesses, they have a consciousness, absolutely, but it isn't as refined as ours are. They can't laugh. They can't. It's not. I don't want to say quality, but it's not the same model as ours. So that when they go, they go. And I think they zip right out, and it's like, kind of, oh, thank heavens I'm not hurting anymore. I can walk, or I can see, or I can hear, the whole thing is
right.
They just get on with their lives. At least that's been my experience. They just keep going. It's not like they're dead. They're just in another stasis, I guess. I don't think they realize that there's a difference, to be honest with you. I think they just keep on going. And I think your dog probably beat you home.
He probably did. I did have visions of him later on, but I was just, I just spin my wheels all the time on that. And I appreciate your feedback on that, quite honestly, because it does bother me. And I do know that you're right. Yeah. I mean, they have a different way of transfer. People are more, the emotional body, mental body, whatever else is going on, holding on and clinging on to life, and also clinging on to whoever is in the radius. But
they have no concept. They have no concept of death.
Right. That's very true.
They have the concept of life, and their life just goes on, and they don't realize that they're not in a different form. They're in a different form. I mean, I've had to let go of a lot of my animals, and usually the the question is answered simply by will they have a quality of life? And if there's not a quality of life there, then I let them go.
Right.
Usually they're by then 21 or 2 years old. They've had a good long life, but or if they're in pain. I know I had my Sheltie. He had all sorts of cancerous tumors all through his brain and his whole body, and the cats could knock him over. He couldn't walk by himself, and I had to have a towel under him and walk him around the yard that way, and there was no quality of life for that dog. I mean, he couldn't run, he couldn't bark, he couldn't do anything, and then he kept having grand mal seizures, and they wanted to do all sorts of stuff to him, and it was like, will he be better? And they said, well, we can't guarantee that. And I said, okay, then if you can't guarantee me, then we're not going there.
Yeah, when they're that old, they don't like to do surgery. Usually, that's what they said to me anyway. With my boy.
Yeah.
But he had some blood work that wasn't proper. I guess his blood work wasn't good enough to do any real surgery on him at that point. But yeah, but he's a struggler. The thing is, what I know about my dog, and not to get too much into the dog thing, but he was very much a fighter. Even when he's like me. Like, even if he was in pain or he'd ride through it, he'd go through it, he'd just be invincible, even though he was getting old and his body wasn't cooperating with him. It was something else. And that's what I noticed in him, is the spirit was so strong in him physically. Even if he was getting old and couldn't hardly get up, when he was getting to that point, we had a lot of arthritis and everything too. So, but I want them to be free and not traumatized, and just be at peace and be able to do, like you were mentioning, just let them go and be happy. But I do wonder about that, even with people, like I said, when they transfer out, is it all right? Is everything okay? I think that's the biggest question why people go to mediums or psychics, to anybody. They want to know if their ancestors are all right. They want to know if they've made it out okay. And I'm sure maybe you can relate to that with some of the people that probably have contacted you over the years asking you that question. I'm not sure or not, but it is a popular one.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my, it's one of my gifts. I can usually tune into a person just after they've crossed over, and it's hysterical, actually. My friend Jeannie had an elderly lady that was, I guess the kind word is cantankerous. She was downright mean. And Jean took care of her in a nursing home for years and years and years and years. And this woman, she pulled stunts that were just unbelievable. The nursing home finally said they'd never had anybody as bad as her. I mean, she was after the men. She would walk around naked. She would do all sorts of stuff. And she had vascular dementia as well. So, and when she died, when she finally crossed over, her first thought was, I'll be damned, I thought I was going to hell. And, she was just so amazed that she wasn't in hell. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's I can catch that moment in time, when they've crossed over, when they're totally out of the body. I can kind of tune into their energy still while it's still kind of around, and just get just the feeling of what's going on and how they are reacting, and it's really amazing, and it's a lot of fun, because usually there's humor there. I did a spirit circle with a whole bunch of people in Virginia once, and I said to two women, I said, there's a male spirit here, and it's unusual because he's very angry with you guys. And I said, I don't know if it's which one of you it's for. And they looked at each other and they said, we're sisters, it's our father. And
wow.
I said, he's going on and on and on about the fact that, first of all, the food you served at the reception was not what he had asked you to do. He had asked you to, he was very specific about his wishes, and you didn't follow any of them. And they both kind of looked at each other, kind of like, I told you so, I told you so. And I said, but the thing that he is most upset about is that you didn't bury him in the suit he wanted to be buried in. You buried him in another suit, and he was really upset. And they said, well, the one he wanted to be buried in was a new suit, and it was very expensive. And I said, and you didn't bury him in it. And they said, no. We buried him in, and they said, I forget what color it was. And I looked at them, and I said, was it the one that had a vest that went to it, too? And they said, oh, yeah, that ugly vest. Yeah, he was in that, too. And I said, okay, so now your father is laughing at you. And they said, why? And and this was so cool. I said, you know that key to the safety deposit box you were looking for? And they looked at me and said, yes. I said, it was in the vest pocket.
Oh, wow, that's right on the money. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Good call,
and I said you had best stop looking for it and just go to the bank and say, sorry, it's with him. He took it with him.
Unless they dig up the grave.
And I got to do that. But what was really funny was, I said he wants his suit, and they said, well, you know, he was cremated. And
oh wow.
And I said he wants his suit, and they said, well, how are we supposed to get it to him? I said, you're supposed to get it from the guy you gave it to and burn it.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And they did.
Oh, that's good. That probably solved a lot.
Well, yeah.
Well, it does sound like they hold grudges, huh? Some spirits do cling. Now, I wonder if that's not a haunt, though. That was you channeling the data, right?
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily a haunt. He's not haunting anybody.
No, I got another man that was so upset because they wouldn't let him haunt somebody. He wanted to rattle chains and scare the pants off of somebody, and apparently it's against the rules. So I guess a haunting is very different, but, you know, he got to the other side, and first thing he wanted to do was scare somebody, not to death, but scare somebody, and they wouldn't let him. So
that's interesting. But that's another question I have. The other side, the terminology of the other side, where do you really think that comes from?
It comes from, at least from my standpoint, it comes from the spiritualist church, where their concept is that the other side is, they call it Summerland because it's always at twilight. It's always in twilight. Now, that's not the concept I have of it, but the other side I get is you know, this side is a physical reality, and the other side is an etheric reality.
Mm-hmm. That makes
so
sense.
they obviously don't have a physical body anymore, but they have a physical form for a while, and
right.
It's you know, the other side.
That makes sense. It's like a mirror between worlds, though. When I think about it, it's almost like it can be reconfigured. Like, yes, you leave the body here, this body, but then you get a new avatar. You can create one. You can engineer one, so to speak, and well, then that takes us into possibly reincarnation, or just staying on in between space-time into another lifetime in another realm, other planets, other star systems.
I think, and I don't know for sure because I haven't been there, but I think what happens is your consciousness still feels the form you had, but you don't actually have the form.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, it's not a physical solid form anymore, but I think your spirit may be so used to living within the physicality that you have here that for a while it maintains that form in consciousness. I don't think that there are shadow people walking around any place. I think that they are etheric. I think they have no form, but the consciousness remembers the form of this avatar. And when it's interesting, my theory, at least today, well, no, it's been for a couple of days, so it may be a theory I will expand upon to a great degree. But you know how people say you have a contract when you come into this lifetime, and of the things that you would like to draw to you so that you can have the experience of certain situations. I believe that what happens is the spirit figures out what it wants to work on next and creates an avatar or moves into an avatar that is being formed. And when it moves into that avatar that is being formed, it takes with it that roadmap. And when it enters the form, that roadmap, when that bonding takes place, that roadmap is imprinted upon the DNA of the avatar.
Right. That makes sense. Yep. Like a template. Yep. I could see that.
So that once the DNA is applied, kind of like a circuit board, the DNA starts then to, create a magnetism that draws to it those things that are most needed for the lessons this lifetime. So,
yeah, like a program. That makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, and that it's put into that it's programmed actually into the DNA, and that a lot of what they call our junk DNA is not junk at all. It's possibly the history of our entire journey through time, and that's why
I agree with that.
That's why we have memories of lifetimes past and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is activated through frequency, and that to me, and that's why I always look at seeing what's going on here, because the frequencies are off in this particular field, which some are weaponized, and I think some are just running interference. There's a lot of electricity and transmission and signal that is not in correlation to our cosmic blueprint, so to speak. So I think that's where we run into problems while we're navigating here, at least from my perspective. So,
well, I think we should also, I was going to say warn people, but that's not exactly what I mean. I think we should alert people that on Tuesday night, on top of the fact that it's election day, on Tuesday night it's a full moon and there's an eclipse. So the energies are going to be wild.
Yeah, I agree. The last thing we need for the election. Hold on to your hats, no doubt, right?
Yeah. There's possible craziness coming.
Stay off the road again.
Not a bad thought. Not a bad thought.
Well, I always like to say get out of the way. Get out of the way. If it feels kind of crazy, just get out of the way. Don't be a moving target. Don't be in the line of fire.
I went and voted early.
I did too. Yeah.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be in that energetic field. I wanted to just do my thing quietly, and I'll be home. I'll be on the TV watching, certainly. But when this kind, I think we have coming some very, very unsettling time as far as stuff goes. I don't know what the outcome is going to be as far as the election goes, but depending on how it goes, I would say between now and January, when new offices are assumed and stuff like that, that there is going to be upheaval like we've never seen before.
That's what they're saying.
And not only that, but my feeling is that at one point somebody said, the Republicans or the Democrats are all going to riot, and the rioting that I'm seeing is not a political rioting of a party. It's the general populace revolting against the government that is not serving them and taking care of them like they were supposed to.
That makes sense.
I can see we are on the way to an upheaval as far as the government that we have established that is supposedly taking care of us. I don't frankly feel taken care of these days.
No, I feel very neglected. Ew.
So it's kind of I really see, and the reason I haven't done the projection the last couple of years as far as the overview for the year coming is because it all felt so unsettled. I didn't feel that was appropriate. I think this year I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because
you should, even if it's Dr. Doom, I would, it's a black hole. No, but I would put it out there nonetheless. Put it out there. People can handle it. I say they can't, but they can. Everybody's been kind of calibrated to what's going on here. It's very turbulent. There's no doubt. And you're right. I think it's going to get worse. No doubt about that. But you're looking at the strategic stuff going on a potential war level, shortages, this, that, and the other. Everything seems to be, but it's all linear. And with that comes something else. So I'm looking at the linear implosion, but there's something bigger intersecting into and onto our world, and that comes from above, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see where that plays out and what you read into it. So,
well, it's I keep seeing things happening, especially the crime.
I know. Yeah.
I have a granddaughter who's 16, and she has another year after this in high school, and then she will be off to college. And they've been looking at colleges, and they looked at NYU, and I said, "Oh, please no, I don't want you in New York." And I said to her, I tell you what, you have a year to go before you go to college. I don't care I do care where you go, but I have nothing to say about it. So I really, there's nothing I can do or say. However, in the year you have between now and then when you go off to college, please take self-defense classes and be able to protect yourself.
That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. I hope she takes a martial arts class. Yeah, Krav Maga is really good, by the way. That's probably one of the better ones for her.
Well, I said to her, she said, well, I know, you just kick them and, in the lower regions and you're okay. And I said, and if you get grabbed from behind, I said, you have to know how to protect yourself. And
they need to train. Yeah, they need to train.
Yeah. And
some guys can handle a kick to the groin, by the way. So don't think that's going to work on all of them. Some guys are on so many drugs, depending on who they are. But if they're really wired, they're not going to feel it. They're not going to feel it. Some will, some won't. Depends on the person. They practice that stuff, getting kicked in the groin. We used to do that in martial arts training to the guys, right? So without a cup. Okay. So by the way, one didn't wear his cup one time, and he was kicking in the air like he thought he was really awesome doing his taekwondo kicks, and we just underkicked him. He just went, that wasn't very. That was not okay. For him, but I digress.
He survived, right?
He survived. But my point is, that's a vulnerable area, but, some guys can handle stuff like that, especially if they're on all kinds of drugs. You never know what they're on. You've seen law enforcement try to tackle a guy, or it takes quite a few officers sometimes to get one. You think about a woman who's light, tiny, and, they definitely need to know how to counter.
Well, and especially a girl, but even the boys, I would say, martial arts for at least a year before you go, just so you have some sort of weapon, some sort of way of protecting yourself.
Oh, I totally agree. I don't know why parents don't put their kids in martial arts at a young age. I've never understood that, because I taught martial arts. So, and I loved it when the parents would bring their kids in. Even when they're little, they don't get everything right away. But it's the best thing, and if they stick with it, they're phenomenal martial artists later on. That's a lifesaver for them. Absolutely.
And, my granddaughter is, I'm beginning to look like a hobbit next to her. She's 5'8", I'm 5 foot. And,
Are you 5 foot? Oh, you're a hobbit.
I am.
Maybe an elf. Maybe an elf. They could be smaller too.
I used to be 5'4", but age
great.
has
So
taken
you shrank?
whatever. I shrank.
They have these. Did you see that article about? It was in Gattaca too, where you can extend your legs. Of course, they have to break some bones. There was a guy who actually had the surgery in California, who wanted to be taller because he was 5'5", and he went to 5'8". But he went through excruciating pain to get there through surgery for his acting career. I don't know. It's a very interesting article. It reminded me of Gattaca because that's what he did in the movie. I don't know if you saw that. But he literally had his legs extended so he would appear as this other person. So that was very interesting. So that's the new fad, I guess, or whatever.
Well, when I can remember it, you go in for the test of all sorts of things as you get older. And at one point, the doctor said, well, you're 5'1", and I said, oh, that's fantastic. And he said, well, you shrank. And I said, I know. Now I'm a petite, and I can shop in a whole new section of the store. And he just looked at me, and I said, means I don't have to hem everything.
There you go.
So.
Well, if you start growing again, you might get taller. You never know. How this is going to work out. This world is strange.
I have an inversion table. I hang upside down a lot.
Oh, do you? That's cool. How nice.
Oh, yeah.
I had a friend that used to hang upside down like a bat. I forget what those things are called, but you literally hang from your heels like a bat. I think they're dangerous myself, but he used to do that all the time.
No, that's what that from a bar in the doorway, you mean?
Yeah. Mhm.
Because I have an inversion table, and it tips you upside down.
Well, that's better. And that's okay.
Yeah. But it just, if you've kinked yourself or whatever, it does unkink you. And if you have pinched nerves, it unpinches those. So it definitely saves money as far as the chiropractor goes. But I think that today almost everyone should have martial arts, because when you look at these things that are happening on the streets, and frankly, I'm not one to carry a gun or anything like that, but holy mackerel, sometimes you take a look at it and you think of, you have to defend yourself somehow. You don't want to.
Right.
You don't want
to.
No,
I agree. You don't want to be a victim. Nobody should be a victim.
No.
But the thing is, this should be out there. This should not be going on. And a lot of it, in my opinion, has a lot to do with just the negligence of the border is a big one, whether they want to admit it or not. Yeah, and also letting criminals out of jail. These hardcore criminals are just getting a free ride. There's no repercussion whatsoever. They have a huge, rap sheet, and they're getting out there and they're doing all kinds of horrific stuff. So none of that is being looked at. It's really negligent, it really is. And what are we supposed to do as a people, as a group? I don't trust anything. And we were talking about this. I don't know if I was talking to you about it, but the idea behind not really going any place alone anymore. You might want to have a buddy system, or somebody watching your back, so you're not. I think that's a smart move. If you're a woman and you feel vulnerable, you've got to have situation awareness now. You've got to look under your car and around. It's not even being paranoid. It's literally just being aware of predators. There are predators everywhere.
And it's happening in broad daylight too.
Yeah, it is. It's very bold. They're very, very bold. Yeah.
And I don't remember. When my son was in college out in California, I went out a couple times, and I don't remember the people living on the street out there the way they are now. And I certainly never saw it in New York City where it's happening now. And it's all over the place where people are. Their jobs are gone and they have no place to live, and they've got the tents and they're living in, they're doing their best. But holy mackerel, what has happened to this country?
Right. Well, I don't know about you, but I predicted it being a third world disaster years and years ago. I said we're heading to become a third world country, and we surely look like one. And the only people that are benefiting right now are the super wealthy, as far as I can tell. Upper middle class, the middle class is being thwarted into poverty. I know people that are trying to live off their retirements who literally can't live off their retirements. And they had, there were the upper middle class people that are retiring, and now they can barely make it, and they get minimal amounts of money for retirement with inflation. How does, it's just insanity in motion, and nobody seems to really care. Everybody has a life worth, and as we discussed on the show, we're not just physical people. We're beings. We're star people. We have soul, spirit, consciousness, you know. And when you look at the vastness of what we are and the type of weird that's going on here, it's inexcusable. And this is a world where we don't have to suffer. We don't have to. Nobody has to suffer here, which I never understood why this agenda, you know. So.
Well, you know, it's. I think it's meant to make us forget that we are star people.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's what really bugs me. It's like, why would they want us to forget that? Why? I mean, the creativity that is being dampened. Kids are not educated to utilize their creativity to think. They aren't. They are being programmed with lies. And this is an ex-teacher. This is a teacher speaking. I really, if I had a child today, I would have that child home, and it would be homeschooled in a heartbeat. I wouldn't, you know. I mean, my grandchildren. Happily, my son was able to put them through private school, so they got a fabulous education. But you know, I didn't have that kind of affluence, and I would have homeschooled my son rather than put him into a school system that is first of all not teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic and stuff like that. They are not even teaching World War II in schools anymore. They aren't teaching the Holocaust. They aren't teaching, you know, I'm in the South here, and history here is a bit skewed too. So, you know, it's just the richness of history gives us a platform to build on, and they're taking that platform away so that all we have is what they tell us, and what they tell us a great deal is a lie.
Correct. Yeah. And it's been like that for decades, centuries. So, you know, it's this country was an experiment, and it you know, it was never a democracy. It was always a republic. Still is. Agreed. Why do they always call it a democracy? They still do that today. I heard Biden saying that the other day. What's wrong with them? Don't they understand?
Did they read the Constitution? Did they, you know, I mean...
They read anything. They make their own rules.
Well, I know. And that's, you know, I live in an HOA, and I have found that while there are rules here, if you break one of them, there's no consequence.
Wow, that's interesting.
And even better yet, we did change the rules so that there could be fines put onto people, and they don't care. They don't pay the fines, and then there's no consequence. So, you know, it's the rules are great if people are honorable, but if they're not honorable, they don't apply to them. It's just
I agree.
It's ridiculous.
Well, you know, the thing is, the foundation is crumbled. The foundation is built on corruption. If it's built on corruption, you can't have a solid foundation, you know. And that's what I've been seeing here in this illusion and delusion of a world in this country, especially right now. It's just it's so criminal. There's just so much organized crime that you can't even look at anything with you know, any kind of respect or integrity. Seems to me like that's just non-existent. So it's really a shame to see it.
You know, so often people talk about, you know, well, there are the white hats and the black hats. There aren't white and black hats anymore. Everybody has a gray hat, and you just don't
gray.
know. I mean,
exactly. Well, I do, and I know you do.
Well, yeah, but
and these guys are the ones running the show. I mean, the alphabet agencies are the ones that have been running everything for a very long time. You know, they create the storyboard, and everybody's flying around doing the same thing.
And people buy it all. They're so programmed to say, you know, this is. I mean, it's amazing. People will I won't talk to the last couple of elections because I don't want to get into politics. But prior to that, during campaigns and stuff like that, everybody would make promises. And Jeannie and I, for a number of years, have written down all the promises everybody's made. and realize that I would say 75% of them are empty promises because as an individual, they aren't able to do any of that. They don't have the authority to do any of that. So how could they promise that? And
that's very true.
And then, you know, it's like, how many of the promises did they actually keep? And it's usually maybe 1%, maybe.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
you know, if I'm elected, I will do this. Well, if you're elected, the promise that you just said you would keep means that it has to go before the House and the Senate, and then the president has to sign it. And if any of those, you know, don't work, your promise is empty. So I think people should pay attention to exactly what people are promising and what it would take to make that happen, because we don't have a dictatorship yet, and, you know, somebody can't promise something that takes so much more to actually make it happen than them just saying it. So they're empty promises.
Yeah, there's too much corruption.
People listen to them. People say, well, they said they were going to do this. And, I mean, Gene and I have stopped writing down the promises and just, you know, watching afterwards because it's fruitless.
It is. Well, think about it this way. Would these people actually have a cup of coffee with you? And if they did, would you even like them? I think that's something to look at. How many people would you sit there and have a real conversation with? I know they do their little political BS and tour around and have the fake handshakes and everything else, but when push comes to shove, it's true. They are puppets on a string, and they really don't have the power and the authority they say they have. I think the DOJ runs an awful lot. The military-industrial complex seems to be making a lot of calls. The military, in my opinion, is not our military anymore, and they seem to be not getting into too much of this realm. But they are literally calling the shots, if you ask me. And I've said it before, I was very concerned about the Space Force taking over the military satellites, all of them, because I understand what kind of personnel they have working there right now. So I'm not real happy with what's here. I think it needs to be regenerated in a different formula, to be honest, and it's very corrupt with the weaponization of space right now. Well, and maybe that's what you're looking at. You might want to remote view that, Barbara, because I've been looking at that, and that's the big deal. That's the big window.
Well, I think though what scares me is I'm not seeing, you know, so much of extraterrestrials causing trouble here. I will say they're probably watching us like a soap opera, but I don't feel that's the problem. I think it's the people here that are. I don't know what they're doing or why. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, they're shutting down all of our fossil fuel, all the coal and all the oil and everything, and there's nothing to replace it with. What are they?
Sabotage, basically.
What are they thinking? I mean,
well, the only thing I could think of. No, I agree with you, but the funny thing is, it's either they're doing it deliberately to sabotage, or somebody in the background who has a lot of authority is going to release big energy with 0 point to everything, so that we don't have to deal with payments on anything, and nobody's living in poverty, and everybody's pretty much very well off. That would be the way to do it. Not everybody's poor, not everybody's struggling. Everybody is very, I would say, wealthy. And the universe is abundant. Why shouldn't it be here? And I think, in my opinion, if they're going to sabotage, then there has to be an alternative, and we have an alternative. We have patents. We have all kinds of other things in the ether and beyond. We could easily switch it. We could flip a switch so fast. And that's what bothers me the most, Barbara, is that it's like, why on earth would you put people through this hell just because you want to play the devil? I mean, really? Something wrong.
Well, look at Nikola Tesla wanted to give everybody electricity for free. It's out there. It's the way to do it is out there. Is put the damn towers up and give us all free energy.
And it's really funny because, in my opinion, this world is a primer for that. And, you have everything grounded underground, so to speak. So it's definitely a primer to the ether, which is, beyond the realm here. In my opinion, once you get into a particular configuration, you can navigate anywhere. We don't need rocket ships. We don't need any of the primordial tech they're using. Not even the internet.
No.
So I don't, and I know they have this. I know they understand it. I know they understand what I'm talking about. So that's the world that exists simultaneously with this one, and that's the world we were supposed to make the jump point into, and the, going to the next timeline. So we're already there beyond space time. A lot of people are not. I mean, our consciousness is there rather. So that's what I'd like to see, and I don't see why. And show me a man or a woman who wants to stand up and say, "Hey, let's go for it. Let's do it now." I'd like to see that person stand up right now and say it. We need somebody like that, to be honest with you. And we have so many patents. I mean, think about all the patents that were stolen. People were murdered for those patents. Taken away, erased.
Think of all the patents the government bought so they could suppress them.
Yeah, it's insanity. And once again, somebody knows. Somebody has a lot of data. Beings like us can access that data easily because we're very good at traversing and remote viewing and just our stream of consciousness is beyond their configuration. But I'll tell you, these guys, it's really a war crime. It's a universal war crime to stop the evolution and knowledge and gnosis of anyone or anything here on this world. To deprive them of that evolution, to deprive them of that information, I think is a horrific crime on a cosmic scale. So that's my rant.
Well,
I know we're talking about reincarnation and near-death experiences, but it kind of dovetails. So, in a weird way.
Well, so
we're walking on the edge of the black right now.
Oh, yeah. So many of us, though, have been here generation from generation to generation. So many of us have, I think that there are enlightened beings on the planet right now that are here because we're going through this kind of trauma. I think that there are, I won't call them master teachers, but I will call them enlightened, so that there's a sense of, and I'd like to know where the hell they are, because I know that we are going through a traumatic time, and the next couple of years, at least the next 2 years, are going to be tremendously traumatic for us all. And it's sort of like there's a point to it, there's a purpose to it, there's I don't know, an initiation by fire, so to speak. It does feel as though I think we're going to come out okay at the end, but it's going to be awful in the meantime. And
it's a diversion, too. And the thing is, that struggle you're talking about, that trauma, is diverting everybody's psyche, energy, and consciousness away from the true space-time configuration and into this void of nothingness where they're trying to manipulate. So that's what we have to break orbit with. And when I look at the 2030 agenda, by the way, we're in fast track. They're going fast track towards 2030, which is, that's a whole scenario. But when you look at it, in my opinion, when I've looked down these timelines, and I'm telling you, I don't see a big population. By 2025, I don't see a big population at all. So that's what I've been seeing, something way, way different. And also, I still think Al Bielek was spot on when it came down to what he saw with artificial intelligence and a small population. I don't know if you looked into his records or not, but he did mention about the future of the world, and he just, to me, I resonate with it. I totally get it. Just really seeing.
But what takes out the populations? Because it's millions of people.
Well, think about what they're doing right now. It's a slow kill. It's a slow bleed. In my opinion, the primer for the mass collective to be destroyed is the directed energy weapons and the aerial warfare above our heads right now. Those are the primers. And I've said it a billion folds, that transmission, that type of transmission that they're using is a kill shot to anyone and anything with a life force and a pulse. And they know it. And I know that, you have these other things going on with the bioweapons and the injections and this, that, and the other. That's just one little avenue. The bigger scenery is what's above our heads. And I tell everybody, be very careful about those satellites and everything else they have been. Think about how fast they've been putting up satellites. You think that's all for the internet?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hell no. So, yeah. I've been monitoring a lot. It's just my nature to do so. And I'm telling you, oh, no. There's something way big. And, of course, they're trying to say it's the adversaries off planet. Well, they created adversaries off planet. And you're right. It won't be an attack from off-world species against us. It's going to be their personnel, their military, their reverse engineered tech against us is what it's going to be, if that is a war that decides to kick off. And they've already used a piece of it. They're already deploying parts of it, and little pieces here and there. Yeah,
and it's just, you look at it and you think, why? And definitely there's something going on because the Georgia Stones, it was just one panel of the Georgia Stones that were destroyed, and yet they blew the whole thing up and plowed it under. Why? I mean,
yeah, exactly. Was that a kickoff, though? And that's another thing. Was that a kickoff, or was that a demolition to just eradicate the idea? Or was that their way of saying, hey, let's start the game? You have to ask yourself,
No, it could have been all of the above.
You remember Easter Island, too. Wasn't there an accident over there with Easter Island and one of the, some kind of fire or something that destroyed some of those? Yeah, with the Easter Island with the big statues?
A fire, they were volcanic, so I don't think they could have been destroyed by fire.
I think it did some damage, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to find that link for you. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But there's been some weird going on, some kind of sabotage when it comes down to ancient artifacts, ancient sites, ancient power spots, and areas where there's a huge, like the ley lines have changed quite a bit from what we recognize as our own celestial blueprints. There've been some kind of distortion in the field, if you ask me. So, yeah, there's a lot being displaced, I guess is the word. Very interesting. I'll get to that article. You might find it interesting.
Yeah, I thank you. I think that they are destroying and suppressing a lot of antiquities, and I think that what I have been itching about, I guess is the best way to put it, that everything happened within the last 12,000 years. Nothing happened before that. And the reality is that there were civilizations here and there were cultures here, and they may well have been far more advanced than we are, and destroyed by some sort of cataclysm. And it may have been a comet hitting the Earth or whatever that just wiped out most of humanity. But there's nothing, nobody's talking about what happened before the last damn ice age. There were,
correct.
I mean, let's face it, Antarctica was in a temperate zone. There has to be.
That's still a good place to go. We should head over there. Get rid of the military, though. Those guys, they're all staking that area out. So we need to clear that space so we can go over there.
Absolutely. But it's kind of like, maybe the pyramids were built by a culture before the last ice age.
Highly possible.
Well, yeah, and so you just kind of the planet is old. Of course, we're older.
It's beyond what they realize. Yeah, and so are we. And that, the moon, how that works. So that's way beyond the configuration of here, too. That's another thing, that monitoring station. Everything is, it's so advanced, in my opinion. It's not like we were old, everybody's there, like with clubs, like in the Flintstones. Everybody's thinking it's that kind of primordial. No, I think it was extremely technological, and they've obfuscated every bit of it. So and that's just more than intuition. That's gnosis and all the information that I've accessed over the years. I can tell you, there's so much concealed. There's so much.
Well, if you look at the pyramids, some of the hieroglyphs, some of the pictures, they show them using what looks like a light bulb, and probably was, because I've often said, how could they have done all these paintings and everything, and there's no no smoke or anything like that has marred, the paintings, and how did they do them in total darkness? And they had to have some form of light. And
I think it was way beyond light. I think it's more of a 0-point primer too. There's a lot to that pyramid, especially when it's in resonance with other star systems. In amplification, I think it's like a grounding rod too. So yeah, there's some mystery there. There's a lot of mystery there. Very interesting. We talked about the Bosnian pyramid in the past, and that's another one. Do you remember that transmission that came through? And the transmission was like bar the gates or something. That to me is a big deal, isn't it? They were trying to survive underground, if it's for real, which I don't know. I mean, go ahead.
They said that the tunnels are closed. We will survive here until the Stargate reopens. I mean,
yeah, that's important. Which Stargate, I guess, is the question.
Well, I think there's a Stargate in the pyramid.
I agree with you. There's an access point. And even people say that's not a real pyramid. I'm sorry. I think it is definitely a structure of some kind.
Well, no,
people argue that with the Bosnian pyramid.
Those tunnels, have you seen them? Have you seen, you know, the ceramic boulders that are in some of them? And when they moved a boulder, the tunnel flooded, and when they moved the boulder back, it dried up.
Right.
So the ceramic boulders really are telling you where the running water is underneath them, and the negative ions in the air are so pure that people with arthritis and sometimes cancer have found that they've been healed from just being in the tunnels.
I know. I need to go over there. It sounds so nice. I could regenerate in a heartbeat. Just to feel better.
Geez,
you know?
No, Dr. Sam
I need a regeneration chamber. But that's what it is. We're in the wrong space-time. Go ahead.
Have you had Dr. Sam on your show yet?
No. Oh, I had him on in the past. I have not talked to him in a long time. I'd love to get him back on, though. It's been a while. So, yeah. Have you talked to him recently?
Not within the last year or so. I've had him on twice, I think. He's one of my favorite interviews. I introduced him and welcomed him to the show, and he interviewed himself. And in that voice of his, he would say, and you would say, Barbara, and you would ask Barbara, and this is what I would answer. And it was, I could have folded laundry and baked brownies. I mean, you know, he just
he's the ideal guest.
Oh yeah, no,
it's nice. He's so professional and so knowledgeable. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Oh yeah, no, I could listen to him all night. I just and his book was. I don't know how I got actually a hold of his book, but it's not published anymore. But it was a great book, and but he's an amazing. I haven't heard much of him lately, and surprisingly, he was on Ancient Aliens early on, but not lately.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me because they changed their whole format. There's a lot of talking heads there that just I don't know. I'm not real impressed with Ancient Aliens. So.
Well, I'm not either, but Patrick was on during season 6, and it's kind of every now and then I'll put it on just to have noise in the house because cats don't talk much, and every now and then I'm shocked because there's Patrick up on the screen, and it's like holy mackerel, because I was there when he did that 2 weeks before he died.
Oh, really? So, wow. It's a nice little time capsule for you.
Well, it is because they took slices here and slices there, so he's in I think at least 3 to 5 different episodes of it on different topics, which is kind of fun. And he was done. He said, "I'm finished. I'm done." And then when they asked him to be on Ancient Aliens, it was like the icing on the cake for him. So, we did that. But, there have been some very interesting shows. I look at it, I listen to it, and if there's something there that I feel like I want to investigate further, I do. But, I would say a good half of the people on have already been on the show, and if they've written a good book or whatever, like Andrew Collins and Greg Little, their stuff is amazing. And
very good.
I think Andrew Collins has a new book coming out in December. I think.
Well, that's right.
I
think he mentioned that to me. Actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, first female pharaoh, I think.
That should be interesting. I have to. I'm behind. I need to get. Where do I have time to read? But I will find some. There's so many books. I'm like, at my library. I'm not going to throw away any of my books. I love physical books. So.
I do too.
I'm like that guy in that movie, Twilight Zone. But go ahead.
Oh, I love that.
There's all the books around him.
Yeah.
I still have. I can still see and read them for now, but.
I've got my books now. I have them piled on the floor here alphabetically so I can find a book when I need it.
Oh, thank you.
You know,
I alphabetize too, and I've gone to friends' libraries in their homes. I'm like, don't you alphabetize your books? They don't. I don't know how they find their books. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I don't find the books. That's why I'm doing this.
That's my way of doing things, and that's the way you're supposed to do them, in my opinion, is to keep it alphabetically, in order. So.
Yeah, there are just piles here, and a lot of books. It brings back great memories. So.
Oh, I
bet.
It
is kind of it. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm like you. I've got hundreds and hundreds of interviews out there, and
yeah, you've done great. Wonderful. Excellent interviews, I must say. And you've done a fabulous job of the network.
And Mark too. He does a terrific job.
Mark is fabulous. He's helped me too. I really appreciate you, Mark. I know he's out there listening. He's sending me information back and forth on the hotline.
He is probably one of the sweetest, most genuine people out there.
He is. You are, Mark.
Yes, he is.
Kudos to you.
And that means I don't have to give you a raise for Christmas, Mark, by the way.
But you don't get Krampus either, so there it is.
I often threaten to cut his salary. Of course, he gets nothing, so he's not too upset.
Well, thank you.
No.
He says he's blessed.
But no, he is a good person, and he does an amazing job. I am fortunate that I think 4 years. I don't know if it's 3 years going on 4 or 4 years going on 5, but we've been. He's been a part of Nightlight for a very long time, and certainly his help has gotten us to over 2,000 subscribers for Nightlife. For the Nightlight YouTube. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yes,
very cool.
I'm sure he's relieved that we hit the 2,000 mark, and now I'm going to stop, really following the numbers as they come, because we got close, as we were getting closer to 2,000, it was like, oh please, we got to over 4 years. Thank you, Mark. So that that's a big number. It was for me anyhow, because I remember when I was in single digits. So.
So I think it's fabulous.
It's Nightlight has been out there for 15 or 16 years now.
Wow, how amazing.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
And the Nightlight's still
we'll
on?
keep going.
That's nice. Oh, yeah. That's good. Yeah. We need a Nightlight. Everybody needs a Nightlight.
Well, that was my theory when I named it Nightlight. Somebody said that's a stupid name, and I said, no, it's not. I want it to be a nightlight in the darkness and confusion of the times. And that's what I think it's become. It's really, really cool spiritual people come on here and share their wisdom like you. And
thank you.
People can listen and get a little bit of insight and understand that they're not alone, and it's important. So
I agree. That there's hope too, beyond the illusion of.
Oh yeah. Well, and I tell everybody, as long as this is fun, I keep doing it. When it's not fun anymore, and I will stop. But it's been an education so far, for sure, and I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. So.
And you sound like you are. You do great, and the interviews are awesome. Very nice.
Well, I catch yours too, and you're doing the same thing in on KCOR and on Freedom Slips.
Yeah, I'm still there, plugging along. It's still interesting, it just becomes routine. So, I don't know what I do on a Friday and Saturday night.
How long have you been doing your show?
I think with Ravenstar, I think I've been there like 10 years. I want to say something in that window, 9 to 10 years. And the other one is less. That's like 7 years or something like that. So, but then I was on Dark Matter Digital Network. Remember, Dark Matter was Art Bell, right? I was actually, that's where Hyperspace was born, was on Dark Matter Digital Network. That was with Keith Rowland, and that's how Hyperspace was created. I went over there. It was a real thrill to have him produce me, because that's our Bill's producer at the time, and to be on that network was just like, wow. Even though, it was really cool. It was really nice to be there. Of course, we all got dumped as soon as Art went live, but it was nice. Jimmy Church took off from there. That's where he really started to fly, and a lot of good hosts were over there at the time. Yeah. So I've been around.
I think there are a lot of us old timers that are still plugging. And
isn't that amazing? I know. I feel like such a dinosaur. Oh my goodness. I try to keep my sparkle on my scales, but
Well, I think that there is a stability on your show, and hopefully here too, that we're not going to get too crazy. We're not going to run around saying conspiracy, though there are conspiracies for sure, but that we try to put out a material that has a spiritual foundation to it, so people can kind of get an idea of where they can go and how they can utilize their own talents and their own gifts and stuff like that, because it's nowhere else.
I agree. Yeah, self-expression too. They're learning, and also it's the power of self-expression. It's teaching them how to express themselves in some formula. It doesn't have to be a radio show, but creativity in some form. That's a big deal. All the information that you brought forward, that's quite a bit of data with your interviews, and information they will never get in a school or a college most of the time. You have to dig for this stuff. And if you get somebody out there who has a great expertise in some of these areas, and you get to interview them for 2 hours, that's gold, if you ask me. And that's what I love about the radio.
Well, I tell everybody that Nightlight is my PhD program. I find an area I'm fascinated with. I find an expert in that field, and then I talk them into tutoring me for 2 hours for free.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
well, you paid your dues as a teacher.
Yeah.
So, hey, that's time for you to get some free education.
But I do read the book of everyone I have interviewed so far. I read their book before I do the interview. And I did Brian J. Jones a week or two ago, and his book was 744 pages.
Wow. What kind of book was that? What was the title?
It was on Jim Henson, and it was fascinating.
Oh. How cool is
It was fascinating. It was a good read, and actually it was such a good read that I have booked him again for, I think, April or May for his book on Dr. Seuss.
Oh, how cool is that? I may have to look into him as a guest.
He's a great guest. And
awesome.
I always look for the spiritual stuff for it, and apparently Henson, among other things, was into the Seth material, and I never knew that. And he had a spiritual outlook that was phenomenal. If somebody stole something from him, his attitude was, well, they must have needed it more than I did.
Wow,
so
how interesting.
The purity and the innocence of the original Muppets had a very spiritual background for them. And
very interesting. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Barbara? Okay, good, because my microphone got bumped by my dog. Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Oh, yep, you're fine. And
okay.
A lot of his stuff that he did outside of the Muppets also had spirituality symbolically in it. And if you didn't realize there was symbology there, you don't see it. But if you know that he had the spiritual background, you look for the symbology, and it's there all over the place. It's just phenomenal.
So
he
was very interesting.
He was teaching, and he did a book on, not Washington Irving, Mark. I don't know. I don't remember what it was. Hopefully Mark will type it in someplace. But he did a book on Jim Henson. He did a book on Dr. Seuss. He did a book on
George Lucas.
George Lucas.
Market.
And no, and there was one that Mark interviewed him on too. So
very interesting.
I
like Washington, George Lucas. I like the work. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Washington Irving.
Oh,
the
Washington
other one.
Irving. Okay. Very interesting.
I mean, strange combination, but I mean, he does. Our Brian Jones is just an amazing interview. Couldn't shut him up. And
well, that's good.
Oh yeah, no, he was great. And the book was, I have to say the book was an easy read in that, I try to read a little bit each day. I just break it up as 20% for 5 days. I should be fine. And it went fast. The book did. It was really an enjoyable read. It chronicled his life, what he went on, how he organized the whole thing, and he graduated college. His degree was in home ec.
Really? Oh, that's not a class.
But it was a major in that he wanted to build sets, he wanted to make costumes, and that's where he got his sewing sewing abilities from. Yeah.
How fascinating is that? That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I would love to build sets. I think that's such a cool thing to build a set and be on those. I think not being an actor, but being in the background, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. Especially with science fiction films. I bet you that's really cool.
Oh, yeah. No, he'd be a great interview for you. He
I
doesn't
may
take
have to
much to
steal
turn
him,
him on.
Oh, gonna have to snag him.
Happily give you the contact information. No,
yeah, he'd be awesome. I'd like to talk to him. Very cool. Happy to interview.
And I'm looking forward to Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yeah, I love Dr. Seuss. Even though they tried to, blacklist Dr. Seuss or something, didn't they? I don't know what, but who doesn't love Dr. Seuss?
Well, true.
The books. I did, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, the schools took a lot of the Dr. Seuss books off the shelves because they felt they were racist.
I don't see that. How the heck can you be racist in a book like that? I don't see it.
Well, there was one about colored faces or something. It was like that Star Trek. Was it Star Trek? Yeah, where one guy was black and white one direction, and the other, and his twin was black and white the other direction.
I remember that. Yeah.
and they fought through time, and he went through the whole thing of having to be able to work together and be together. There were a number of Dr. Seuss's books that were taken off the shelves.
So sad. People take things way too personally, if you ask me. I don't even look at it like that. I don't even read the energy like that when I'm seeing stuff like that. I think it has to do with them and their psychological imprinting. I really do, because most people don't see things like that. Sorry, if you're evolved on the consciousness level, you're not even thinking that realm.
No, but unfortunately, I think I grew up with reading Dr. Seuss to my son, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And with Henson, when they were composing music for the show, they asked teachers, what are the most common words kids use, kids learn to read. In school, they got those words, and that's what they made their songs up from. So, a lot of cool stuff in that book.
Sounds really interesting. I'll definitely be interviewing him. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, he's a good one.
Well, they're all good. I mean, my goodness, you look on your all of your archives. Yeah, every guest is stellar. Every guest is awesome. You don't have any bad guests.
We've had a couple.
Well, none that I'm aware of. You probably.
Mark and I have a couple that we kind of chuckle over.
Did you boot them off the air?
Actually,
you didn't do that. You're too classy.
Actually,
right.
Actually, those shows didn't make it on the air. There weren't a lot, but there were a couple. And there was one lady that had a nervous breakdown on the show that I thought Mark was going to die over. But we edited out the breakdown, so it was not bad.
That's good.
But, yes. But back to our topic, kind of near-death
I know. We went
experiences.
into our universe for a while.
Well, that's okay. A lot of people have had near-death experiences, and they don't even recognize them. A lot of people have had out-of-body experiences, and they don't recognize them. And I think that people need to be more aware on a conscious level as to what's going on with them, because I do feel that there is an ascension taking place, downloads being given, and I don't think people are understanding what's happening. They feel strange. They feel weird. They've gotten a download of some sort. I think there's a lot going on. I think the universe is trying to wake people up. The universe being, I don't know who, but I know that people are getting downloads, and they don't know what to do with the material, or they don't know how to utilize it. And I think that the one thing that has been a constant in almost every spiritual person I've talked to is meditation.
Yeah, that's a good one. That will help definitely decipher the data, keep them more centered with it anyways. And some people, it depends on how they retrieve the information. I mean, you say the downloads, I mean, it could be a visual, it could be information in dialogue and narrative, telepathy. I mean, I always see it as frequency. So when you're looking at things that change your perspective, what your consciousness is changing through the field. So the frequency is shifting, and therefore the consciousness is becoming more animated, more activated to some degree, in my opinion, on some level. And maybe that would bring them a little bit more peace. But with that kind of fuel in your system, that kind of energy, then meditation would definitely help ground everything, just like anything else. So that's a good one. But with some of the stuff like astral projection, I always feel invigorated. I have had other experiences where there's been some interesting, you talked about shadow people not being around. I saw one like a few weeks before Samhain. There's shadow out there. And I don't know what it was doing around here, but I did see something. It was a shadowy being, and it was a male. And it definitely was shadow. It wasn't technological, at least under my observation. So they're around. Whether they're earthbound spirits, I don't know.
There's a cat knocked the telephone. Cat unplugged me for a minute.
And my dog? Okay. You okay now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. She just unplugged it.
Okay, good. How funny. Your kitty, excuse me, your kitty didn't want me to talk.
I figured you would keep talking no matter what, so.
Yeah, I was just, I thought it was very interesting anyways, looking at that whole thing. And but I do think it's all about the frequency bands and how people calibrate the field. But, if they're getting confused, I think the disorientation is coming from the linear realm and all the static and all the trauma they're being exposed to.
Well, I've noticed a lot of people are talking about having trouble sleeping these days. And I think that's part of what's going on. And the one thing that I am sort of holding my breath on, I think there's going to be an EMP surge. I didn't used to turn my computer off at night. I now do that because I don't know if that'll make any difference if there's an EMP. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the internet is going to go down for a short period of time.
I wouldn't be surprised at all to hear that, considering it's being a target. I would say get a satellite phone if that's the case. For a lot of people, I don't know if I trust the other kind. You might want to get a satellite phone.
Something I took a look at them. They're expensive.
There's one, actually, I should get you a link that's not super expensive. I think it's like $99 a month. I don't know. It's not any more than a regular, different contract with a regular phone, a cell phone. But yeah, excuse me. I can get you information on that.
Yeah, I would appreciate that because I really, I talk to some people every day, and if the internet goes down, telephones may go down, and if that happens, then we lose communication. I mean, if the internet is, stop and think, if the internet is down, we don't have the internet, we don't have telephone, and we don't have television. We don't know what's going on in the world.
That's right, except for what you see outside, who comes knocking on your door, right?
Well,
so that's an interesting aspect of it.
Suddenly you're going to have to look for a newspaper.
Well, good luck with that.
Well, just think. Seriously, think. If the internet goes down, we become isolated like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, that's very true.
I mean, they tried to isolate us with the pandemic. They did to a degree. But all they have to do is knock the internet down, and we will have no idea as to what's going on. We'll have no idea as to what the government is doing. We'll have no idea. We'll have just no idea. So,
keep them confused and dispersed to some degree. Yeah, I could see that happening. I think that they're in for a free for all at some point. It seems that way anyway. Chaos in motion.
Well, that's I kind of wanted to find a way to still stay in communication with people if the internet went down. And the only thing I could think of would be a satellite phone. But if they take the internet down with an EMP or EMP, would the satellites be down too?
Not those, from what I understand. That's not the one that was a link I sent you. Not with that one.
Okay.
So, yeah, at least that's what I'm under the impression of anyway. So, these are good, from what I understand. So.
Well, on top of, everybody's saying, okay, there are going to be food shortages and we're going to have, toilet paper is going to be gone again or whatever. But, so long as we have the internet and so long as we have our telephones and everything and so long as we have TV, we know what's going on. I think what they want to do, and this is not aliens, this is humans that are trying to really control the populace. I think what they're trying to do is to isolate us to the point where we depend upon them. I mean, how will they? I mean, the only way they could communicate with us is if they gave us the internet to a degree back, but only had a station that gave us information that they wanted us to get. I mean, it would not take a lot to suddenly control the entire nation or world.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I think that's the whole idea, is to control everything with one move on the chessboard, so to speak. But yeah, and keep the information minimal. Well, that's the whole idea about censorship and sanitizing information and controlling the narrative, which, of course, you saw how the Department of Defense took over the UFO anomaly research insofar as trying to data mine everything, keep all the information in one area, and then try to go after the people that are actually communicating the truth. I mean, I saw that going down. So there's all that weird. Everybody wants to control and manipulate information, and but that's not going to stop anything. The more you try to suppress and oppress, it just blows up. So who knows? But in the meantime, I think they're going to be up to no good. All these areas, they're just tricksters. A lot of Loki energy running around.
I don't know the point to it.
I think they do
really
it because
don't.
they can, and I've said it before. They do it because they can. Nobody's stopped them yet. Nobody's put the brakes on them. That's why they're doing it. If they had something or someone putting the brakes on them, they wouldn't be doing it. It wouldn't happen. That's my point. The only thing that can shut them down is off-world intelligence. That will shut them down. Off-world species will shut them down because their information and technology and everything they reverse engineered doesn't belong to them and their divisions. It belongs to off-world species. And that's a whole different ballpark. That's a whole different configuration. That, in my opinion, is the only way to shut them down. And that will happen at some point. I don't know if we'll be here to see it, but that's going to happen.
Yeah, I just don't see any point in. I mean, I can see the United States going towards socialism. I can see it becoming a dictatorship. And
well, it certainly looks that way.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any point. I used to tell people that I was lower middle class. Now I'm upper poor class. You know, I mean, the middle class is gone.
Middle class has gone into poverty, and not everybody, but quite a few. Upper middle class has gone down to middle class has gone down to poverty, and that's not okay. That is simply not okay for everybody and everyone and who's worked so hard over the years and has nothing left and nothing for their legacy of their children or their grandchildren. Absolutely inexcusable.
And again, I said it earlier. You know, they're shutting down all of our fossil fuel, and they have nothing to replace it with. What are we supposed to do? I mean, there are people
I guess.
There are people in Europe that are going to freeze this winter because there's no fuel. I mean, I'm in the South, you know. I mean, it'll get nippy, but I won't freeze. But
right.
And actually, my electricity comes from a nuclear power plant. So
does it?
While it may cost an arm and 5 legs, I'll probably have heat. But people like when I lived in Connecticut, I had propane. Propane is so expensive now; it's unbelievable.
Oh. Yeah, no, it's outrageous. That's what I mean. I feel sorry for people, and we should be going back into the Dark Ages. This is my point. You know, like I said, I was teasing about Flintstones, but really, that's what we're heading. It's insane, you know. And there's no excuse. Remember back in the old days, well, we weren't there in the illusion of, but our ancestors were. But the idea behind all the toxicity associated with coal anyways, I mean, you're looking at real dirty kind of energy in a sense. I mean, I don't know. I don't like where they're heading, and in my opinion, it's not necessary. It's almost like they're trying to punish everybody and say, keep your breakaway society with your big tech, big money, and your big types of technology to flip a switch and be able to have free energy, and then let everybody else suffer and eventually expire under that duress. And that's what it looks like to me, a split collective. And that has to stop. That has to be stopped. So these guys aren't superior to anyone or anything on this world. Money doesn't prove that. So it's real interesting to watch this thing play out.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm on Social Security and pension. It's I'm covered, but there's I'm not rich, but so far I can pay my bills. But I'm all alone, and I have 2 cats, and I can't get out of the grocery store for less than $200, and often $300.
Yeah, welcome to my world. I agree.
And
I actually just did that today, and it's like I don't have any real expenses with other people or anyone, and I can't believe how much it costs just to buy a few things. Yeah.
So it was kind of like, and no good stuff,
Right. Most of my stuff I buy is for my animals. Dog food, cat food, their supplies. I get a minimal amount in mine. I get a little tiny bit for me, but everybody, the animals get taken care of first. So.
Uh-huh.
How that works.
And
I agree with you, and it's going to get worse.
I know, and it's like I don't even really buy meat. I buy frozen stuff, but I don't buy meat, so I'm not looking at steaks and roasts and chops and all of that. Don't do that. I'm one person. If every now and then I will put something in the slow cooker and then have 8 or 10 meals out of it that I can freeze because I got my freezer. But aside from that, no. And it's just it's incredible. You cannot believe that life has come to this. And you figure you get to a place where you're retiring, and although I don't think I've ever worked harder in my life. So, but still, in all, when it's just me and 2 cats, it shouldn't cost me that much money for food. And I have a hybrid card, so I get gas once a month. So I'm not commuting to work or anything like that. But people who are having to pay the $4 and $5 a gallon, my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's nickel and diming basically every single thing. This is crazy. We didn't have to go this route once again. This started with a new administration, quite honestly. So we weren't like this as much as people didn't like Trump, this, that, and the other. I must say, our economy was good, and the gas was really low. So I think that's something to show. So it's crazy. I mean, it's like I guess rich people don't care because it's not going to affect them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's amazing where everything's going. You just sit back and you keep saying, I can't believe this. And yet there it is. So, but I think my big thing is if they cut the internet off, then I have no communication with the world. And that would be very sad. I mean,
well, yeah, you reach a lot of people with one virtual fingerprint, right? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
In the old days, we'd have to send mail to each other again, like in the old world days. Snail mail, where you actually have to communicate through a letter. I would get down to that level, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. Or even the telephone, right? The old-fashioned telephone. But yeah, I don't like it either. I think it's ridiculous and it's petty, and something needs to give with it.
Going to be interesting.
We're all working on this whole field. There's a lot of people here interconnected, and it's not just about one person's will to change it and say we don't want you to have this anymore. That's not your call. I mean, I'm talking to whoever the ones that think they're in charge are. This is a huge amount of people here on this world, and that's not okay. So something has to change. Something has to change.
And ultimately, it will. And I think what most of us, we have a very small perspective on our time frame, but in reality, I think that humanity as a whole, over the last couple thousand, 100,000 years, has gone through this kind of a phase, a cycle, and we end up with a very small population, and then it grows and it gets technical, and we have golden age, and then we go downhill. I mean, look at the Minoans. I mean, my goodness. That was amazing. And
I don't like the teeter-totter. I don't like that back and forth. Go ahead. You know what I mean? It's up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like a bipolar world. Let's just break orbit. Let's just get rid of this.
It's
no
a
recycling.
It's a 5,000-year cycle. So you've got maybe 5 or 10 lifetimes in there. So that it's amazing to you sometimes I look at a lot of the artifacts that they're showing, and I think, well, I remember using that. I know what that's for. Look at the little plane that they found in King Tut's tomb, and somebody else that they actually found was aerodynamically appropriate and could fly. So that was 3,000 years ago or so. If they had something that actually could fly, I mean, what else were they capable of?
Well, that's another thing too. You look at the whole Giza area and the Giza Plateau. I mean, people just see it as some old structure, an artifact of some kind. But I'm telling you, that thing is powerful. It was powerful, and to look at it now, you'd never know. It's so obscured. Everything has been so cloaked, and then of course gutted to some degree because private investors have taken a lot of ancient artifacts, as far as I can tell. I've heard that through the grapevine. There's been the black market sales and anything that had any value, whether has been sent someplace else, and unfortunate. Nobody will ever see that. No one will ever get to experience the energetic, in association with what I call our cosmic ancestors. And that's that to me is the biggest disservice when you have ancient artifacts of any kind, whether it's extraterrestrial or other, where no one can actually physically connect with it except a group of people that are not really the ones that are supposed to be, accessing it. So, yeah, it's a very interesting world, isn't it? I wouldn't have created it like this, but that's just me.
What do you think about that large chamber that they have found above the grand stairway there, that is all sealed up, that they haven't been able to they know they've done the radar and stuff, so they know there's a huge chamber there, but they don't know what's in it.
Is that in the Great Pyramid?
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't looked into that one a whole lot. I did hear something about that a while back, but when I look at it, I always see it as an energy. There's an energetic signature associated with 0 point, and traversing the galactic neighborhood with what I call a gateway access point, where you can literally access from point A to point B through a different configuration, like what I talk about to some degree. It reminds me of the movie Stargate, too, on some level. I find that it's all about the frequencies, and whatever's there, in my opinion, it's not really about the empty space. It's the frequency and the alignment that is what we're looking at for the power. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's what I keep seeing when I look at that whole place.
I think that it's a huge chamber that's empty, and I think that they're going to put a small hole into it with a camera and to see what's in it. I get a feeling it's kind of like that thing they found. It was a gangster's safe that Geraldo Rivera did a whole thing on opening the safe, and they opened it and it was empty. I get a feeling that that's what's going to happen, that this chamber is going to be empty. But, they have all sorts of guesses as to what's in the chamber. It could be any number of things, but whatever is in there had to be put in there when the top was off, because there's no hallway or tunnel that reaches it. It's totally isolate but totally empty. So,
well, if it's empty, why do they need to send a robot through there? If they know it's empty, they just want to see what it looks like.
Well, no, they've done the kind of radar that says, here, there's this chamber, but I don't think they can get what's in it. They're going to have to put a camera through there, like right. The little ones that Well, you've kind of heard that through the grapevine they've been doing a lot of excavation without people understanding or knowing what's going on. I've heard that they're, even with the Sphinx, they've been kind of digging when they're pretending they're not, and saying they're doing renovations when in fact they're actually going in and actually investigating but not telling anybody. So in my opinion, that could have already happened. And I don't trust them as far as I can throw them on any side, any country. I don't care where it is. So it'd be interesting to see. I guess it's something I'll look into, and even on a remote level. But when I look at that pyramid, I see it as something that is very significant when it comes to us traversing and getting out of here and moving into a different space-time. And I think that particular frequency and how it anchors energy is in correlation to how we were supposed to be navigating out of here and leaving this world. We're not supposed to stay here. I honestly believe that we were never supposed to be here as a civilization this long. Ever. I don't know if that even registers with people. But I believe we were not supposed to be here this long. Well, I think we came in as we are now. I don't think we came in, with our knuckles on the ground and then we evolved up. I think we came in fully formed Homo sapiens sapiens. And I think that I know with Christian O'Brien and his wife, the Shining Ones, I think that material figures in here, that they were here to help us learn to cultivate and stuff, and then they did breed with whoever were indigenous. But that I think that there's a level of our consciousness is that goes way back. And again, I hit the same thing here, that before the last ice age, what was our culture like? And before that, there have been 5 mass extinctions so far that scientists say happened, though I don't know how they figured that out. But even if that's the case, what happened before that? I mean, what was here?
Mm-hmm.
What, who was here? What was here? It just, to me, I don't think that we have gone beyond the 12,000 years before the Dryas, the whatever days,
mm-hmm.
so that it's kind of like we know so little about our evolution and the planets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
that's the
like,
biggest disservice of it. I agree with you. And the funny thing is, I think it has a lot to do with what our capabilities are. That's why we're always ascending. The word ascending, getting out of that false matrix and into the truth, into beyond the spectrum of here. So we can access the true database and get the data, get the correct data. Is it ever going to give it to you? But we have the ability to do that, and I hope people understand that, at least listening, that we do have the capabilities to access that cellular, molecular, atomic, and consciousness level. That's what's so unique about us as star people. So, but yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I've really enjoyed this talk tonight. I know we're getting at end of the wrap-up here, but it's been an awesome show with you.
Oh, always with you. I think that there will be not a mass extinction, but a mass evacuation.
I agree. We need plenty of lifeboats. Yep, real lifeboats, like arcs, like spheres. That's it.
No, I think that there will be stargates that open up. I really do.
Yep,
and
I agree.
That certain people will just go.
And it doesn't mean we have to die.
And I think that there will be some that decide to stay, but at that point, I think that it will be an easier life. So that although if somebody opened up a stargate, I think I'd be right first. Well, I'd take the cats, but
Well, I there's a lot of projects. I've been working on the Orion Gateway project. It's in my book, but we will be leaving at some point in space time. I'm determined to, and I don't. It's kind of like Captain Kirk. I don't play the game. I just change the game. I'm not doing that, and I'm not being arrogant. We all have this power and ability, and I think that if we move our focus to the true cosmic origin of what we are, we can do many, many things that are beyond what people can fathom. So just energy
totally
up.
Agree.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have the power.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I draw the analogy all the time. We're like an expensive car, but we don't have the owner's manual to know all the buttons and whistles that we can push and use. And it's a matter of working on ourselves so that we can sort of activate a lot of the potential we have within us. And I think most people are content to not know, and then there are people like you who are not content, and and me to a different degree, but certainly the same way. I want to know how to do this. I know that we're not meant to be in spaceships, but I do know we're not meant to be here. So
correct. We are the spaceship too. That's another part of it. You are the spaceship. You are the Merkaba. You are the one that can teleport, spaceship, bilocate. That is a capability of our ancestors, if you ask me. So even if it sounds like science fiction.
But it's our spirit that is the traveler, not our avatar.
But this avatar can calibrate to the spirit. That's my point. You can actually take this field. You can take your biosuit and actually calibrate it. You really can. In my opinion, we could actually do that. If they were taught to do this, I think we would have a whole different civilization, to be honest with you. I think we're going home.
Well,
I really do believe that. Home isn't here.
Well, I think not everyone wants to go home or is ready to go home.
That's true.
So I mean, frankly, I'd leave a lot of the politicians here.
Well, I think they're going to, they've created so much entanglement that they're probably going to have to stay. They're not going to be able to go anywhere because their roots are here. Their entanglement and the karma and the dharma beyond the word they've done a lot of damage. And that's, it's one thing to screw your own life up, but when you take the helm and destroy everyone and everything around you, there's a price to pay for that. It's not a free shot.
Oh yeah, no, I
they don't
totally
think about
agree.
things like that.
No, they don't. Well, they will find out. That's my consolation. I know that eventually there will be a balance. I know eventually those that have taken advantage of their power and have utilized it to hurt other people, that eventually there will be a balance, and that if you get out of the way and let the balance happen, it will be so much more rewarding to watch than if you tried to get the balance yourself. I know that. I understand that. It doesn't mean I don't want to get itchy and kind of make things happen faster if I could. But it's sort of like I've hit that in many places in my life. It's kind of like an injustice was done me. Do I get even, or do I let the universe do it? And for the most part, I let the universe do it, and it's always so much. It's so much more gratifying to see what the universe can do.
I do too. I give it to the universe. Yeah, that's the best route. Madam Karma. Fail-safe system.
I've seen it happen too often to know that, if I just get out of the way, it'll be fine.
Right.
And when I start to get my hackles up, I try to say to myself, just get out of the way. Just get out of the way. Don't push buttons. Don't try to get justice yourself. If you just get out of the way, it'll be beautiful. And for the most part, but I always want to see the results, and you don't always see the results. But I've seen enough to know that there really are results there. So we are down to the last gasp here. Do you want to give out your shows and where they are so people can find you?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you, Barbara. Once again, an awesome show with you tonight. And if anybody wants to tune in my other shows, I have Hyperspace on KCOR Digital Radio Network. That's Friday night at 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. And then Raven Star's Witching Hour on Saturday nights at freedomslips.com Studio A, 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. And this has been an awesome show. Really enjoy communicating with you. We always have a great time.
Absolutely, and we aim. We do our best to do this the last Sunday of every month.
That's right.
And so you can look for us the last Sunday of this month, and it'll be my turn to pick a topic. So I'll hope to pick as juicy a one as you did.
Well, we tried to stay on topic, but we kind of went into another orbit, but that's okay.
It seems to be our habit.
Yes, it does.
But
we're
thank
talking
you so
about
much.
this, but really.
We did start there, for heaven's sakes.
That's right. That's right. Heaven forbid we get a roadmap, Barbara. It's going to be something else.
Well, I think it's much more fun of a trip if we don't know where we're going. But it's kind of like, I don't know where we're going, but when we get there, I'll let you know.
There you go.
So thanks again. I so look forward to the time I can spend with you, and I will see you the last Sunday of the month.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back. Look for us, please, because you never know where we're going to go, but it certainly will be a wonderful trip. Good night now.